And it is Wade and Tim back at you while Loverboy Kaiser continues to cavort in the City of Lights, in the City of Love. Mark, of course, is wrapping up his Parisian expedition, and we will hear about that shortly. We're gonna give him a couple of weeks to decompress, and then we'll have Mark on, and he'll be back in February.
Yeah.
And we'll jump at it. Tim, give us a post-mortem on the LAFCA Awards dinner. I heard it was fabulous.
It was actually a very well-run show. You know, that's been a really interesting sort of program in years gone by.
It has. The first one I went to was a bit of a mess, and then it was a luncheon, and I wasn't even a member then. I just had tickets.
It used to be a luncheon? I didn't know that.
It was originally a luncheon, and it was Manola when Manola Dargis was president. She's the one that turned it into a dinner. It was originally a midday luncheon with no montage, no music, no sort of show aspect to it, and that was around 2000, I think.
Well, now evening thing, red carpet,
the
black
whole deal.
tie, the whole shebang, lots of speeches, very famous people. The montage was really, really nice. I must say, Stephen Farber, one of the crucial people involved in that montage. Lovely montage, particularly the Shirley MacLaine. Shirley MacLaine, what did she get?
The Career Achievement
Award.
Yeah.
And came up, gave a fantastic speech. She was very funny. Jack Black gave a speech right before her, invited her up.
That's great.
That movie Burning together, It was fairly profane all the way around, and you always gotta love that. But no particularly big music performances or anything like that. Just a lot of important people, talking about their movies. Nice little speeches. I gave a speech. Gave James Laxton, cinematographer for Moonlight. He gave a nice little speech that he seemed to appreciate. So nice show.
Good deal. Well, Claudia Puig, our president now, and Claudia is really she's doing a beautiful job.
Holding back.
Yes, indeed. So nothing else really on the movie front to recount, but we got a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays. So I've got a lot of anime here that we did not get to last time. Funimation has just been absolutely killing it. So I want to point people to some really interesting Funimation stuff. Bikini Warriors is one of those that I often really kind of make fun of, because so much of anime features just big-eyed, beautiful women in bikinis, and there's a really lascivious factor to it, and it's, schoolgirls in uniforms and bikini warriors and whatnot. And this is a series actually called Bikini Warriors. It is a complete series. It's a Blu-ray and DVD combo set. And, they finally, at long last, just named it what it is, and that's exactly what it is. It's a lot of fun fighting. It is absolutely titillating. It is unapologetically so, and I kind of found it really awesome. It's not. It owns its exploitation. Another complete series, Rampo Kitan, Game of La Place. This is also a combo set. Almost all of these are combo sets, except for another one, which I'm going to mention in a second. What I like about this is inspired by the writing of Edogawa Rampo. Now, do you remember the live-action film, The Mystery of Rampo, from about 20-some years ago?
Yeah.
Based on his writings as well. His real name was not Edogawa Rampo. Edogawa Rampo is sort of the Japanese pronunciation of Edgar Allan Poe. And that's where he took his pen name from. But Rampo, the Mystery of Rampo, one of the great films not on DVD or on Blu-ray, and certainly one of the great all-time scores of any movie ever made. His writing's really, really fascinating, and that's where this animated series, very interestingly animated series, draws its inspiration. It is not an adaptation of his work. It is just inspired by his work. It tries to do that very creepy crime style that he did, and it's very, very interesting and brooding and compelling and very, very tense. And it basically starts kind of framed all around this middle school teacher who was framed for murder, or the middle school student who was framed for the murder of his teacher. And from there, you get into all kinds of really, really interesting tentacles and interesting, criminal masterminds and underworld figures.
Is it sort of expressionistic?
It is very much M. It is like a Japanese animated series that's very much in the vein of M. Yeah, it has that quality to it. It's very interesting.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, that kind of.
Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe to it. And then we also have a series. This is only on DVD. It's called Seiyu's Life, and this came out in December. This was after we wrapped up the past year. Not so amazing. This is this is kind of lightweight stuff, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. But some people will, probably, there's room for the lighter anime stuff. So anyway, if the idea, this is anime fluff. That's what it is. And lots of cameos here from voice actors that I guess is kind of a big deal for people who like to follow, particular voice actors in Japan. So I suppose there's a little bit of kind of meta enjoyment here. But, when you have, look, there's a character from a planet Strawberry. I'm sorry, I just can't get with it. Another really interesting, the Death Parade complete series. This is a really, really beautiful Blu-ray and DVD combo pack, and Death Parade is pretty. This is pretty dark. It's kind of an occulty supernatural thing about people who die and they go to this kind of purgatorial netherworld that sits between heaven and hell. And there's this weird kind of afterlife drama and afterlife sort of suspense drama that goes on over the course of this series. It's a little bit hard to follow at points. I was able to watch only a few episodes before my brain started to cramp up on me. So I would say watch it for the animation, and if you have the time, maybe you'll absorb the story a little bit better. And we also have Show by Rock, the complete series, which is a combo pack. This gets into this is one of those teen music stardom anime shows. There's a few of those about we dream of being a rock band, and that's what it is. There they go, playing out their fantasies of being in a rock band in anime. It would never happen here. Ultimate Otaku Teacher, Season 1, Part 1. This is a very strange comedy. I didn't really get it. It's all, I'm sure, very, very uniquely Japanese, so I recommend that only for people that understand the comedy there. Much more engaging is the Overlord Complete Series, which is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack limited edition, and Prison School, the Complete Series, also a Blu-ray DVD combo pack limited edition. Overlord is from the people who did Death Parade, and it's kind of more of the same, similar artwork, and it's kind of dark, brooding fantasy, and I guess it's probably basically the same audience as Death Parade. Prison School is about a girls' academy that becomes co-ed. And suddenly that doesn't actually work so well. The friction and all of the peeping and the things that happen at this girls' academy when they introduce 5 boys who are allowed to go there takes a very, very, very dark turn. And it is kind of funny, and it is kind of disturbing, and it is a little bit weird in that truly beautifully anime way.
Yeah.
Shimoneta, A Boring World Where the Concept of Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist. The complete series. That is literally the name of this series. Shimoneta, A Boring World Where the Concept of Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist. It is weirdly hilarious, and it is extremely strange. I don't even know how to explain this thing. It has to be seen to be believed. It is really, really weird humor. It is uniquely Japanese humor. And yet it is strangely funny in a way that I didn't know you could laugh at stuff like this. It's a very weird discovery. Okay, let's see what else I got here. we've got Ninja Slayer, the complete series. Ninja Slayer is really, really cool. Anything to do with ninjas. Ninja Slayer is just essentially unrelenting, just never-ending ninja warrior attack, bloodletting. It is really just insanely violent, and it is really beautifully animated. Ninja Slayer, the complete series, that's a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. That is pretty fantastic. Also out, part 22 of Fairy Tail, Fairytail. This thing is just never-ending. This is one of the all-time long-running anime series. And there's really no point in actually filling in any of the details of that. If you've missed parts 1 through 21, you're not going to discover anything remarkable with this one. And then just the last few here, Omamori Himari, the complete series, is kind of another one of those fantasy things about demons. It's everything. It's not like it's like a step above Pokemon. Pokemon is demon stories for little kids. This is for kind of young adults, I guess. Anyway, the world of demons as they kind of become mythical deities and interact with mythical deities and humans. It's an okay thing. It's only on DVD, so not on a combo set. Omamori Himari, complete series. Here's one I really, really thought was fascinating. Snow White with the Red Hair, season 1. This is a totally intriguing series that takes place in kind of a fantasy kingdom about this woman with very glowing red hair who is an herbalist and who is kind of a I don't know how to put it. She's not like a doctor, but she's sort of someone that everyone in the village goes to, everyone in the land goes to use her mystical, amazing knowledge of plants to heal people. And she runs afoul of this evil prince. And from there, everything gets very, very interesting, and there are all these weird little backstories and intriguing plot twists and turns. Then there's also Aquarion Lagos Part 1. Aquarion Lagos is the 10th anniversary. It comes on the 10th anniversary of Aquarion. This is a new series, but it's all basically dealing with the same world, just new characters. Aquarion is a legendary anime franchise. We also have the heroic legend of Arslan, season 1, part 2. This is from the people who created Full Metal Alchemist. And this is, just kind of an ancient fantasy medieval saga, and it's very interesting. It's very kind of European mixed with Asian, mixed with Indian. It's got a lot of interesting angles to it. And then let's see, we've got Summer Wars Hosoda Collection.
I love those.
You like the Summer Wars?
Oh yeah, those are so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Summer Wars is from the same director who did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which is also really good.
Just beautiful films. These.
Mamoru Hosoda. And it's really fun. Summer Wars Hosoda Collection. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, and it's virtual reality meets actual reality, and it's really, really interesting stuff. Sky Wizards Academy complete series. This is from the same people who made World Break Area of Curse for Holy Swordsman. There's a mouthful. And this is about this is more kind of medieval mystical stuff. This is about a group that has fought the devil beetles. I didn't know there could be devil beetles. Anime just thinks up the weirdest stuff. Anyway, so this guy has to. It's about a guy it's a redemption story. He's run afoul of his people, and he has to somehow redeem himself. It's like the inverted Messiah angle, and a lot of interesting, weird characters. It's fun enough. It's fair enough. And then we have Sengoku Basara: End of Judgment, season 3. Lots of violent medieval Japanese feudal carnage. Just ongoing, and it's the plot can get a little bit difficult to follow, but it's a good saga. Sengoku Basara: End of Judgment, season 3, new adventure, same characters. Alrighty, so with that, Tim, let's let's start on the new movies.
Big stack of new movies over here.
Big stack of new movies. Let's dive into that.
Which is interesting here. First one in my stack, anyway. New movie, Roger Corman's.
Oh man,
it's funny to say new movie. Put Roger Corman's at the top. Death Race 2050. I don't know how far back does the Death Race movies go? Late
it's the 70s.
It's the 70s.
I
not
think
60s,
it's
70s,
I think it's
right?
early 70s. The original Death Race, and there were a couple of them. I loved them. You know, Sylvester Stallone was in that.
Oh yeah, in the cars. Frankly, for years and years, driving around L.A., particularly if you live where I live, which is kind of in the valley, and you would drive down Cahuenga, and there was that custom automotive, I don't know, and a lot of the cars, the Batmobile, the Green Hornet vehicle, and 2 or 3 of the cars from the original Death Race films would sit right there in that corner. And you drive past them, and every time you'd say, that's the car from Death Race, from Cherry 2000, whatever. Anyway, this one is Blu-ray DVD, Roger Corman's Death Race 2050, directed by a guy named G.J. Eckerkamp, whom I do not know. But you know what? Malcolm McDowell is in this movie along with Marcy Miller and a few other guys. It's set in 2050. The planet has become overpopulated. In order to control the population, the government develops the death race. It's always been, one of those kind of storylines to go.
My favorite moment from the original Death Race is, and I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it's Stallone who does it, where he can score points by plowing over all of the patients from a hospital who've been put in the street. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Where the doctors and the nurses are putting all of these patients out in the middle of the street for them to plow over. But you know what? He sacrifices the points so he can go around the wall and plow over the doctors and the nurses instead.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and just howling.
It's really funny because we think about things now.
Paul Bartel directed
Paul
that.
Bartel.
Yeah.
We think about things like that now. We think about what is those Vice, those Grand Theft Auto movies or games? Actually, the games.
Yeah.
You know what goes back way. Anyway, this one has a lot of bonus features, including the making of Roger Corman's Death Race 2050. And some behind-the-scenes stuff to go with that. Blair Witch, the original Blair Witch Project movie was 1999, believe it or not. And it took them. Although I think there was something intervening.
There was another one in the middle.
Yeah, there was something intervening there to sort of tank. This one sort of more or less picks up where the other one left off with the guys looking for assistance. So this is Blair, just the Blair Witch here. Audio commentary with director Adam Wingard and writer Simon Barrett, and some special features and including a 6-part documentary film here. I didn't see this when it came out. The original Blair Witch Project was quite a phenomena when it hit Hollywood, 17 years ago now, I guess.
Yeah.
Spent no money, that very bright marketing campaign that they used at the birth of the internet, really at the birth of the internet.
Right.
They're sort of alluding to this. It really only gave us one movie star, gave us Joshua Leonard. He's the only guy that really came out of that. The directors, and they did a few things that were kind of interesting. I've got Operation Avalanche here, which is a neat little movie. I remember seeing this one for the show. I like this movie because it's a well-made little thriller, little mystery thriller, and that I like about it. I like the way it's shaped. I like the way it looks. It's a pretty good-looking little movie, too. Basically, what we have here, Matt Johnson directed film, set in 1967. You got these CIA agents who are sent undercover into NASA. They think that they're going into NASA to root out a Soviet mole who might be in NASA trying to bring down the space program, the Apollo program.
Oh, that's great.
But what they stumble across, of course, is the NASA government conspiracy to fake the moon landing. As we all know, it was done. Anyway, the thing that I hate about this movie is that it furthers that perfectly ridiculous notion that the moon landing was fake.
Yeah.
In yet another film. But as a movie, it's actually put together pretty well. I got to say, that's what it's trying to do, so it does it not so bad at all. Special features include deleted scenes, behind-the-scenes featurette, audio commentaries with the filmmakers and the cast. And the production values of this movie are really, really good. I will give it that. I will definitely give it that. Operation Avalanche. The Whole Truth is a Keanu Reeves courtroom thriller. And, courtroom thrillers are hard to pull off, particularly since we have so many really good courtroom thrillers that are on television and streaming nowadays. Anyway, Goliath is a really, really good one. It's streaming right now with Billy Bob Thornton. But I got to tell you, this one reaches back to those early days of the early 90s, early to mid-90s, when the courtroom thriller was the thing that was happening in Hollywood. All those John Grisham films, all those Scott Thoreau films, Presumed Innocent, these were the big movies.
They were.
For about 5 or 10 years there, beginning in the early 90s.
It's amazing how many of those courtroom things, I mean, they made...
The Pelican Brief, a lot of them were either Thoreau or Grisham. But
it was like in about 10, 12, 15 years, I think there were probably 20 or 30 Grisham and Thoreau things that were adapted into movies. It was amazing.
You're right up through probably Lincoln Lawyer was probably the last really
one.
Big one.
It was, yeah.
This is Courtney Hunt, Courtney Hunt made a movie called Frozen River a few years ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, which was a pretty good movie. This is actually pretty neat. This is a courtroom drama about a young man who goes on trial for killing his father. Keanu Reeves takes the case, and we watch and we follow as what seems to be a fairly cut and dry case takes on some fairly interesting turns and left and right hooks and whatnot, and it turns out to be way more complicated than it seems at the top of the movie. Anyway, this is a pretty neat film. Not a whole lot on this Blu-ray DVD, not even a commentary track, but the movie's okay, and that's what you're really buying it for anyway. So you can always just watch that. Denial. Denial is one of the films which a lot of people thought that we might be talking about.
At Oscar time?
At Oscar time.
Nope.
Certainly, look, Tom Wilkinson and Timothy Spall give a couple of really good performances in this movie.
Timothy Spall is fantastic in this. He's movie. Really, really good.
So strong.
I'm still trying to figure out why this thing just didn't really catch fire, because it was literally the first thing I watched when I started watching all my screeners.
Yeah, the movie is about this guy, this sort of revisionist historian, an actual fellow,
a British guy who sort of has made his name as a very forthright and legitimate sounding Holocaust denier.
Yeah, his name's David Irving. You can look him up. Deborah Lippenstadt wrote a book about the Holocaust. She and Lippenstadt got into a tangle about this that ended up in the British court system, which is different from our court system, particularly when it comes to libel and who has to prove what. It kind of works in the reverse of the way things work here in the United States. And it was kind of a big deal and a very, very important sort of issue. The film didn't work for me either, though, I must admit. Performances outstanding across the board here, but this film didn't quite come together narratively for me, and thus it is not a film that people are talking about right now like they thought that they would be.
Yeah.
Bonus feature on this one, The Making of Denial. I can recommend it as a film for the content, for the subject matter of the film. That's where I can recommend it.
Yeah.
What else we got over?
And then we've got Aaron Paul in Come and Find Me. I got to be honest. I like Aaron Paul, but I kind of don't quite get the whole thing. It just seems to me like a guy who had a really good moment. He was well cast on a TV show.
Breaking Bad, obviously.
Breaking Bad, and now everybody just thinks we can plug him into any old damn thing. This is just kind of a middling thriller. This is from Lionsgate. And it's one of those somebody disappears without a trace things, and you've somehow now got to figure out what just happened. We've had a million of these over movie history. As the guy who is looking for his girlfriend and running into all kinds of really interesting and strange and bewitching dead ends and new clues, and it's
between Vanished. And then I think there was another one called Vanished. I think they did it twice. There was the
Vanishing. There were the two The
Vanishing, the two The Vanishings. I mean,
and then there's the French one. What was the French one? Where she vanishes and they think she's dead, and he gets clobbered on the docks. And what was that thing?
It's out of my head.
It's out of mine too.
Anyway, so that's another one of those from Zach Wheaton. Who actually is an interesting television director. He used to direct a lot of episodes of Southland, which was that cop drama that was on a couple of years ago.
Loved Southland.
Beautifully done.
Yeah.
A lot of people remember that show. Anyway, Zach directed a bunch of those.
Southland was a sharp show.
Yeah.
It really was. It was a really sharp show. Almost too sharp. The Dressmaker. Oh, this is such a frustrating movie. Did you see The Dressmaker?
Another one that folks thought we would be talking about, at least in terms of Kate Winslet's performance around this time of year, but not so.
So here's the deal. This is directed by Jocelyn Moorhouse from a script written by Jocelyn Moorhouse and P.J. Hogan. For those who don't know, Jocelyn Moorhouse and P.J. Hogan are husband and wife. Both of them very accomplished filmmakers.
My best friend's wedding,
Muriel's wedding. Those
lots
are
of weddings.
Those are the P.J. Hogan films. He also did a Peter Pan film from some years ago. Jocelyn Moorhouse did the first American Quilt film, and then she also did some. But they're Australian. A lot of great. There's a lot of impressive films between the two of them.
Proof was
the one that really launched it for her.
Yeah.
So when I interviewed him about 20-some years ago, I remember asking him, how do you manage with the kids, because they've got like a bunch of kids, and in his very cool thick Aussie accent, he goes, the kids. Kids, it's kids. That's what I remember about that. He says, "Yeah, I'll make a movie, and she takes care of the kids, and then she'll make a movie, and I'll take care of the kids, and we just trade off the kids." And I thought, okay, well that works. I'm glad you got it worked out. And that was 20-some years ago. The kids are grown now. Yeah, kids are doing their own thing, so they can work together. And I was so hoping that them working together would result in something amazing and wonderful. And it is for a moment, and then it goes kind of off the rails and doesn't really tie itself up very nicely. It just gets it just goes into a weird direction. But here's the deal. So this all takes place in a small Australian town around about, I guess, 1950s. Yeah, is it about the 50s, something like that? And it is a rather nasty, mean little town from which Kate Winslet's character was essentially banished when she was a little girl. There's a history there between when she comes back, all decked out with experience, having been a dressmaker all over the world and with all her reputation. Why is she back in town after all that happened long ago? And so we now have to sort of piece together what happened long ago. What is the history there? And it's a great, quirky town, a lot of interesting characters, the way that she affects the town. It starts to feel like Chocolat for a moment, doesn't it? Kind
of magical.
Kind of magical, and she's, making dresses and changing people's lives, and then there's this competition, and then it just kind of goes off the rails and goes about 25 minutes too long, and it's too bad. There's so much good stuff here. I'm still
Judy Davis,
Hugo,
the other Hemsworth boy,
Liam Hemsworth,
that one,
and Hugo Weaving as the local constable, who is so gay. It is off the chart, and you will. That is he is one of the great delights in this movie, because he's playing a stereotype, but yet it's not a stereotype. You know what I mean? You grow to love him, despite the fact that he is every effete cliche you have ever seen in a movie.
Hugo, which was the Australian movie where they
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Priscilla, yeah. I always got that confused with Tu Wong Fu.
Yeah,
because they came out about the same time.
The two drag films.
Yeah, but Guy Pearce and Hugo.
He takes what could very well have become a completely stereotyped cliche with all of its just effete flamboyance, and he makes it real and lovable and unique and only him. And I can't get enough Hugo Weaving in my movies. So anyway, for all of its crazy faults, it's got a lot of great attributes, and I'm gonna recommend this thing on Blu-ray. This was financed by Amazon Studios, good for them, and you get some special features, just mostly featurettes on here. So there's that. All right, now we're into our 4K blitz for the week. We got a bunch of new movies on 4K, and I'm going to start being a lot harsher on the 4K stuff than I have been in the past, because
we're talking about the actual look of the stuff.
Look is the bar has been raised. Everything is really going 4K now after CES, and as we've noted on the Facebook page, 3D television is essentially dead. It's dead. No one at CES, for the first time now in like 6 or 7 years or 8 years or ever since it
pimped out a 3D TV.
No one has announced 3D TVs. Yeah. So they have all basically thrown the towel in. As of now, as of the new line of televisions that are being released this year, there are no manufacturers, no at least top-tier manufacturers. I'm sure there might be a Chinese company out there somewhere. Yeah. But as of right now, there are no new 3D televisions in the pipeline for any major manufacturers.
I got one buddy with one that requires the glasses. Yeah. He's the only... Patrick, Yeah. He's the only buddy... It just didn't happen, man.
It didn't happen because... Well, look, people don't... I've tried to explain this to so many people who are really on the 3D bandwagon, and I asked them, I said, really, let me ask you, when was the last time you watched a 3D movie on your television with the 3D glasses and other people in the room?
Yeah, yeah.
And the answer always is, oh, well, I never watch 3D movies with others. I just watch. Well, it's a social experience.
Yeah.
Television is the central place of the house. Most of what you're going to watch with other people, not in 3D, because people don't want to be wearing glass. You want to look at people around you.
And they don't work. First of all, he had to buy those glasses separately.
Yeah.
He did buy one extra pair. And it doesn't make any difference because they only work perfectly from one position in the room anyway. And that's the position that he was sitting in.
Yeah.
Which means it's an experience for one, and no one. If I wanted to experience 3D all by myself, I'd buy one of those fancy Samsung Oculus-y kind of thingy-majiggies and just stick it on my own face.
There you go.
Put my headphones in, have a 3D experience.
Totally.
Why am I sitting in my living room with a 75-inch screen? Makes no sense.
So that said, 4K is the new 3D because they figure, well, it's all about the resolution. So 4K is, of course, moving ahead, and our Ultra HD titles this week begin with another film that we thought might be in the conversation for awards and clearly wound up not being, The Girl on the Train. I will preface this by saying I am a huge Emily Blunt fan.
Emily Blunt fan.
I would cast Emily Blunt as anything in any movie. If I were making a movie about cucumbers, she would play the Queen Cucumber.
She can play anything from a princess to a sort of alcoholic girl like she does in this movie here to like Edge of Tomorrow, where she's the badass.
Amazing.
Just owns that movie. Took it from Tom Cruise.
Took it right out of his hands and totally, she killed it. So this is a big kind of lumbering disappointment of a thriller, especially in the wake of Gone Girl, the Fincher film from a few years ago, which is sort of how you do this film right.
Yeah. Exactly how that's a perfect comparison. You could also throw The Accountant in there, which blew it too recently.
Yeah.
Both of those sort of wanted to be in the same spot, but just did not get it right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, rather sad, but it's based on a bestseller, which I've not read, and I have to wonder if all the story problems are in the book as well, or if they just somehow became magnified by the movie. In any case, there's a how do we even get into the story? There's a thing that happens, something nefarious possibly, and she's in the middle of it, and then we sort of have to unravel it, and what's truth and what isn't, and all of those usual questions get asked. And it is stylishly made, but it ultimately goes nowhere, and it really, really falls apart in the end. It just can't sort of hold all of its threads together, which is a problem with most of these things. This comes in a Blu-ray DVD and a digital HD ultraviolet combo set, or you get it in the 4K Ultra HD set, which is a Blu-ray, a 4K Blu-ray, and the ultraviolet code, which of course you can also watch on iTunes. Lots of featurettes here, deleted and extended scenes, the usual deal. There's feature commentary with the director Tate Taylor, who is not a bad director.
No,
but as a 4K transfer, I don't see substantial difference with the Blu-ray. If you have to watch it, I'd say just rent the Blu-ray. Get plenty of enjoyment out of that. And then we've also got Deepwater Horizon.
Yeah.
Which, I admire the craft of this thing. I have kind of, I know I'm a latecomer to the Peter Berg train. He's made movies that I've liked up to this point, but I've kind of resisted giving him credit for them because he's Peter Berg. He's an actor.
I've been in and out on Peter Berg for close to 20 now. Go way back. When Peter Berg was an actor, Last Seduction. Last Seduction. Remember that? John Dahl film.
Yeah.
Peter Berg, Linda Fiorentino. That's my Peter Berg. Then he made this movie called Very Bad Things. Terrible movie. One of the worst movies of all time.
Yeah.
And I would have thought, if you had asked me then, I'd have said, that's the end of that. Yet Peter Berg has sort of worked himself into like a journeyman sort of action, sort of big time guy.
Don't forget, he was a boxer in The Great White Hype.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah.
That was just so terrible, and that was wasn't it one of the?
Was it Damon Wayans or the other Wayans?
Damon Wayans was in it, and I think it was directed by Reginald Hudlin who directed that?
Yeah,
See, that wasn't any good either.
Yeah.
So I've resisted wanting to give him any credit for being, but you know what, He really is able now to handle these big movies.
He knows how to make a move. And they, in fact, move like a Peter Berg film. There is something called a Peter Berg film that has an identifiable sort of
it really is.
imprimatur.
And the Will Smith thing, Hancock.
Yeah.
You know, that's the
Friday Night Lights, of course.
And Friday Night Lights, certainly. So Deepwater Horizon, of course, is, this is one of the two Mark Wahlberg movies that he made last year, which are both huge movies, the other one being Patriots Day.
Yeah.
One is about the Deepwater Horizon tragedy, and the other one is obviously about the Boston Marathon terrorist attacks. And they are very similar in many respects, with Mark Wahlberg playing this kind of, bohunky, all-American everyman at the middle of it. Now, the Mark Wahlberg character in these two films, and especially Deepwater Horizon, does not exist anywhere in real life. No. These are fabricated sort of amalgams of some kind of all-American working-class guy.
Yeah.
And, because Mark Wahlberg produces these films and he's giving himself, heroic roles. I get that. Totally get that. He's like, he's like the Boston Charlton Heston of our day. And that's what he is, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's become. So I will say this about Deepwater Horizon: it is an oversimplification of what really happened. It certainly makes it out to be a whole lot of really workaday guys who just wanted to make this thing work, and a whole lot of red tape and penny pinching bureaucratic guys who wanted to save a penny here and there. And next thing you know, this thing blows up and is the worst oil spill in North American history. Okay, knowing what I know of the event, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But that said, as a piece of filmmaking with its explosions and its tension and its riveting this and that and the other thing, it's a hell of a ride.
The score, the this, that. Hey, look, in John Malkovich, who plays a character who represents an actual person in the film,
yeah.
right? So that character's name is the name of a human on the planet, right? Yeah. And John Malkovich is playing this guy just like a Cajun. He's like some sort of Cajun, he's actually evil himself. So that was that kind of, if I was that guy, I think I'd have some issues with that performance. Yeah. But you know what? It's a fun performance.
It is, no, for sure. So it's not a great movie, but it is like Lone Survivor. It's like Patriots Day. It's like Hancock and Friday Night Lights. It's that kind of a movie, and it's a Peter Berg movie, and he is becoming the most unlikely auteur. So I'll say this: it is a Blu-ray, 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and ultraviolet combo set. And it's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. If you want a reference standard title that will really, really show off the difference between Blu-ray and 4K, this is one of them. Compare the fire. When things explode and the color richness and the detail in fire, that's where you really see it. Even a Blu-ray.
The differential between the Blu-ray and this
and the 4K. 4K will show you. You will think that your television's on fire. Do not run for the extinguisher. It is rather dazzling. So that's where you really start to see the differences in the color, in the detail, the fire, which regular HD captures okay. 4K handles like nobody's business. So that's a good one.
Yeah, interesting. I got a couple over here. I got an Inferno.
Oh my gosh.
What is that? Third? It's the third in that
third one.
The Dan Brown adaptation
Look,
with Tom Hanks.
The first one was ridiculous. The second one was ridiculous on fumes. This isn't even really a Dan Brown novel. It's like Dan Brown didn't know where to go now, so there's nothing super. This is like a Born Identity movie with Tom Hanks.
He has amnesia.
It's whatever.
Felicity Jones is in it though, and she's right up there with Emily Blunt. Yeah. In terms of girls who are just, Anyway, perfectly ridiculous. Plus, he's wearing this wig in this one, which is really bad.
It's terrible.
It's just a problem with the wig. What have we got there?
I'm just going to say that it's, it is what it is. It's not
Ron Howard. Ron Howard will direct something fantastic like that race car movie that he did a couple of years ago. Right? Outstanding work. And then, so it has to be the material, because I know it's not Ron Howard.
No.
It's not Ron. It has to be him and Tom, and all these guys are friends. But somebody had to know.
Contractual obligations.
Third book.
It's the third book, and they were signed on, and you have to do it, and you could just see all of them just getting the phone call. Did you know that Dan Brown just wrote a third book? And they're just going, like, really? Because the contract says I have to make a third one if he writes it. Yeah. Oh. And that enthusiasm is just right there on the screen.
What are you going to do? Yeah. Another film that we thought we would be talking about more.
This merits a lot of discussion. So let's kind of dive into this a little bit. We're talking
about The Birth of a Nation.
Yeah. Nate Parker's film, which was a historic film at Sundance.
Sold for a historic amount of money. There was a bidding war.
Yes, bidding war that went through the roof. Fox Searchlight got it. They didn't even offer the most. The higher offers came from, I think it was Netflix offered, and Byron Allen.
Yeah, company offered $20 million for it.
And they went with Fox Searchlight because they trusted them more with their awards acumen.
Post 12 Years a Slave, I think.
Yes.
And there it was. Now I will say this: coming out, because Sundance is going on now.
Yeah.
And coming out of Sundance last year, there was all of this excitement about this film. I had a few reports from a couple of people before all of the commotion about everything that went down with respect to when he was in college and the young lady who passed away, who committed suicide. And before all of that, I had some reports out of Sundance that this movie was, I won't say Emperor's Clothing, but not as good as it seemed to be, talking about. Yeah.
It was, Sundance always takes place in January in the heat of an ongoing Oscar season. And there is very often things that come out of Sundance that do have some Oscar heat on them. Little Miss Sunshine being one of the more noteworthy ones of recent years. But more often than not, much more often than not, the stuff that comes out of Sundance with a lot of buzz and with awards usually goes belly up at awards time. Yeah. The Brothers McMullen being a great, maybe the best example.
Yeah.
And so the question was, this was the biggest all-time sale in the history of Sundance. And it came at that Oscar so white moment. Yeah. When you have to wonder, was everyone suddenly kind of in the back of their heads feeling the pressure to compensate by finding in the first film by a black filmmaker with a black cast. Let's throw all
with a great story.
With a great story.
I mean, it took him 6 years to get it done. He wrote the script himself, all of this stuff, pushing and prodding.
Raised the money himself.
And all of that. And then, all right, so anyway, then we have the movie itself. All right, now, this is not a terrible movie. This is not a bad movie. This is not a film that I have all kinds of issues with American slave narratives, right? Yeah. So these are my personal issues with American slave narratives. Set that aside for just 1 second. Talk about the film just as a piece of filmmaking. There's some really, really good filmmaking here. There's some first-time filmmaking here too, right? Yeah. I can't ignore any of it. I have to look at it as a critic and say that I can see some real first-time filmmaker problems here. Yeah. It's almost impossible to have the conversation about this film without having that other conversation, which, of course, mutes and blunts anything a critic would say about this film as a film when it gets filtered through that other thing. And that's sort of a shame. This is a perfectly solid cinematic effort. This is a really good first-time filmmaker's film.
No first-time filmmaker. I can't imagine any first-time filmmaker who would not be proud to say, this is my first movie. Yeah. But that doesn't make it a great movie. Yeah. And so,
it doesn't mean that we need to be talking about it in terms of Oscar consideration right now, or it is otherwise a failure. It is not a failure.
Yeah. No, it's not a failure. And the story of Nat Turner is a really significant story. Yeah. I mean, it really is a significant story. And it's our friend Ray Green. You discussed this in Ray's class the other day, too. And, Ray, who is by his own confession, a lapsed Catholic, found the movie interesting from a different standpoint, which is that he saw this as a movie that in which religion is sort of used as a cudgel, as a tool of oppression and division and so forth. And there's a lot of religious imagery in the film, certainly. I didn't necessarily read it that way, but that's fine. You can read a film many different ways. I saw this as a movie about the how faith finds itself awkwardly footballed around in a situation where faith really has nothing to do with anything that's going on. Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly some people...
These are social problems.
These are social problems, and I'm sure that some of these people are fervent in their misguided faith, and I'm sure that Nat Turner was fervent in his faith on a certain level, but ultimately you're all kind of making faith into something that has nothing to do with the current situation. So I saw it differently. There's a lot of discussion to be had in this, but that said, I still don't see that there's anything going on in this movie that I haven't seen done better, going all the way back to roots and all the way up to 12 Years a Slave. And I kind of feel like been there, done that.
Been there, done that. Good, good, solid film. Some first-time filmmaker problems in that movie.
Quite a bit, actually, yeah.
And, what am I saying when I say that?
Yeah.
About a first-time filmmaker.
Yeah.
I'm calling the first-time filmmaker a first-time filmmaker. That's not a terrible thing to be.
It is. It is also basically Braveheart.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
It's basically the same narrative as Braveheart, and it gets a little too gory for my taste at a certain point. But it was a gory era, and even Steve McQueen said about 12 Years a Slave, they had to tone the gore down because if you do what really happened, no one would believe it. So there's the contradiction, the irony of these movies of real life films is that very often you have to make them less realistic to be more believable.
Truth actually being stranger than fiction. There's another one of the Jonestown came out this year too, which is the Matthew McConaughey movie.
Yeah.
About that the swamp or whatever.
The Free State of Jones.
Yeah, that's right. The Free State of Jones
That
did not do well. We thought we'd be talking about that. Yeah. There are a whole bunch of them.
There are. Yeah. There always are. So anyway, how does it look 4K? You know what? It's a pretty grainy, low palette film to begin with. It's very blue, very gray, very foggy. Not a very colorful film. Yeah. Shouldn't be given the subject matter. Does not really emerge as being all that attractive in 4K. I think Blu-ray does it just fine. 4K is not particularly kind to this film. But that said, it also has a lot of extras, a lot of stuff that is significant. You get deleted scenes, you get the feature commentary with Nate Parker. But what is really unfortunate is that this thing was his history, the sexual assault trial, really overshadowed the film and took away all the steam. Is it as good as everyone said it was? No. Does it deserve all of the backlash that it's received?
Yeah, the weight from all of that baggage? No.
I think that's unfair too.
No.
So anyway. All right, that said, Tim, let's try to get through some classic film stuff here. Yeah, let me do the olive titles. Because we got a whole pack of olives here, and I don't mean the food. This is a great bunch of titles from Olive. We love the people at Olive. They give us so many interesting movies. They continue to license really, really great stuff. The Scarlet Pimpernel is a great story that has been done many, many times, and there was this really interesting adaptation of it in 1941 called Pimpernel Smith, starring Leslie Howard, which basically takes the Scarlet Pimpernel and immerses him. It kind of turns him into a Cambridge professor, an archaeology professor, very Indiana Jones style guy, and it puts him into a World War II era drama, shall we say? And I don't want to give anything away, but it is certainly a British propaganda film to counter Nazi propaganda films. It's very much of the World War II era. But the fact that it's adapted from the Scarlet Pimpernel story with no less than Leslie Howard is really, really interesting. And I had never heard of this film. It was completely off of my radar, and it is a fascinating discovery.
I've seen that film done. I've seen it done Swedish. I've seen it done Japanese. All the Pimpernel Smith story. I've seen it.
I'll tell you, you realize at a certain point that there is a lot of Indiana Jones in this, and a lot of Pimpernel Smith in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It's not. We usually, for Indiana Jones as a touchstone, we usually want to go back to King Solomon's Mines,
Alan
Quatermain, and there's a lot of it that goes back to this as well.
Yeah.
So that was a nice discovery. William S. Hart, one of the old silent era mainstays of westerns, stars in Wagon Tracks. This is a 1919 film. It's only 69 minutes long. It has tinted sequences, and it is interesting really only if you're a Hart fan. I find these very early silent era westerns to be really quite compelling in that they kind of pioneer a lot of the narrative structures that would emerge in later westerns with Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne. And to that degree, I find it rather interesting. It is one of the better ones with Hart, and it is worth checking out if you are a silent film.
Kind of a wagon trainy kind of movie going through the mountains past.
Yeah.
Plays a guy named Buckskin in that movie.
Right? Isn't that
Buckskin.
great?
I gotta love it.
Let's see. The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T is a fantastic, fantastic film. This movie is so awesome. People often forget that Dr. Seuss, Theodore Geisel, wrote the screenplay for this, along with Alan Scott, but it is really very Seussian. This is the famous live-action film that Dr. Seuss wrote the screenplay for. It is an absolutely fantastic fantasy. It is wonderful. It is beautifully shot. It is just vibrant beyond all comprehension. This is not Olive, by the way. This is Mill Creek. But it is it's also licensed from Columbia, from whom a lot of the Olive licenses come from, and this is absolutely a wonderful movie. So
Hans Conried,
that's so good. Oh, Hans Conried is so great as the bad guy with that voice. I can't even do it.
He was an Orson. He was a part of Wells's Mercury Theater. That's how far he goes back.
Really? He was part of the Mercury Theater?
Yeah. He's in War of the Worlds.
Kidding.
He's in the radio War of the Worlds.
No kidding. All right. And then getting back to the rest of the Olive stuff, boy, did I get a wrong number with Bob Hope and Elke Summer and Phyllis Diller. This is just one of those sex comedies from the mid-'60s when sex comedies were pretty chaste. And, with those three, you got to go, okay, Bob Hope, not very sexy. Phyllis Diller, not sexy. Elke Summer, very sexy, but not enough to overcome the other two. No. So it's a fun film. Very much of its era, directed by George Marshall. But it would have been better with Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, that's the one which has that great bubble bath.
Yeah, the bubble bath scene. Elke Summer. Yeah, it's hilarious. Sabotage. Terrific film from 1939, right on the eve of World War II.
1939 Sabotage.
The 1939. Oh, there's like 10 films called Sabotage.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
You're thinking of the Hitchcock. The Hitchcock film.
Would have been before that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is not the Hitchcock film. This is directed by Harold Young, and this is the 1939 Sabotage, and it is perfectly fine. It's a spy film on the edge of World War II, and clearly has a lot of those threads in it. It is perfectly fine. Good story by Lionel House and Alice Altshuler, but it is not that remarkable. A little bit more interesting is one of our aircraft is missing, which is from 1942, and now we're back into the heart of World War II. At least, certainly from the British aspect, and this just deals with an RAF bomber crew. And
classic Powell and Press.
Classic Powell Pressburger thing. It's very much in the thick of what they were doing at the time, and beautiful performances, really, really very well done. Good cast, solid cast. Even though it has that British, it has a tinge of the propaganda film to it. Still really enjoyable.
It's all more or less a Churchill speech.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Powell and Pressburger were perfect at that. They knew what they were doing.
The Men's Club is one of the more recent films from the Olive releases. This is from the MGM library. This is a Peter Medak film, and I'm a huge fan of Peter Medak, who made so many great movies. They were so diverse.
Let Him Have It.
Let Him Have It is the one that just still floors me, and that is still not on Blu-ray or DVD. Can you believe that?
Really? I had no idea it wasn't.
No.
It's about the craze. Well, it was really. It wasn't, but it was.
Well, he made a separate Cray film.
Oh, you made the Craze? That's right, the Craze.
He made the Craze.
Yeah, that was the Craze. Yeah,
the Craze. Let Him Have It was the one about the two kids. And did he? It was basically the last.
What did it mean? Yeah, let him have it. What did it mean? Did it mean let him have it, or did it mean let him have it?
Yeah, and that was the last execution, the last capital punishment. That's what put an end to it in the UK. So anyway, with the Men's Club, Peter Medak puts together an absolutely incredible cast. This was amazing at the time. Frank Langella, Harvey Keitel, Roy Scheider, Treat Williams, really an amazing cast. And those are just the guys. Then you got Stockard Channing, and and on and on and on. Jennifer Jason Leigh is in this movie. It's an amazing cast. The film itself is really almost more interesting now, I am inclined to say. It's based on a novel that I was unfamiliar with at the time, still not familiar with, but it gets into support group sessions with these men from all these different backgrounds, and how all of this sort of dovetails into their respective lives and relationships. I find that at the time this movie was made, 1986, we weren't really talking as much about this stuff. All of this self-help stuff was sort of still in the air, but not really in the culture. Yeah. Now it's in the culture, and as are gender relationships and a lot of this stuff. And I find this movie actually a really interesting artifact, very, very prescient.
Yeah, of where we were going at a particular time. Yeah. Coffee and Cigarettes.
I love that movie.
This movie, Jim Jarmusch film, of course, with Bill Murray and Tom Waits and Roberto Benigni. Well, you know Roberto Benigni. Joie Lee, I mean, all of these people sitting around.
Jim Jarmusch just shooting a lot of really fun vignettes with great actors.
Yeah, and people talking, and he got away with that whole little sequence with the camera because Harvey would go out there and set the camera up and take the picture. It was really sort of beautiful notions in this movie.
The two things in this movie that I love the most, that I absolutely love the most, is when Bill Murray and when the RZA is in the restaurant and Bill Murray is their waiter, playing Bill Murray, and the RZA every time he addresses him as Bill Murray. What up, Bill Murray? Why are you working in a restaurant, Bill Murray? And it's the most bizarre, off the wall, strange, weird, creepy thing in the world. And then there's a sequence, there's a story in here that involves Alfred Molina and the Journey, the other guy.
That's Steve Coogan.
Steve Coogan.
Yeah, Steve Coogan.
Yes. So Alfred Molina and Steve Coogan is sitting down playing Alfred Molina and Steve Coogan. And Alfred Molina telling Steve Coogan, I've discovered that we are related. We're cousins. And Alfred Molina finds this to be so wonderful, and Steve Coogan is creeped out and terrified. And that's all it is. And it's just such a weird, freakishly funny, strange movie. It really is a lot of fun and beautifully shot by Fred Elms, who's, of course, done a lot of stuff with David Lynch. Really, I love this movie.
Yeah, so far, Jarmusch in general, always ahead of his time.
Always.
A lot of the stuff that we see on streaming now on Hulu and on Netflix and on Amazon, which are these sort of like contemporary, sort of movie talk. He did 20 years ago. Yeah. That movie, I think it's from 2003, if I'm not mistaken. Do you know Lulu Bell? I don't know that movie.
Lulu Bell. Yes. Dorothy Lamour played Lulu Bell. This is an okay film. This is from 1948. It is a true story, but the question is always just how true was it? Lulu Bell was a big deal on Broadway, and this is kind of a late backstage look at her career and the ups and downs of her relationships, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a little bit of a crime angle to it as well, and I don't know how well this film really ages. Dorothy Lamour was, never really great at holding a movie down by herself. She was somebody you threw in with Bing and Bob and let them kind of roll as a threesome. But in any case, Lulu Bell. George Montgomery also shows up. It's Otto Kruger does a good job in this too. Yeah, Lulu Bell, 1948.
From 1919, Abel Gance's Jacques.
Oh, such a great story.
It's been told many times, of course. Really great story.
It deserves to be told again.
And it kind of, along with Paths to Glory, I don't know, one of the great sort of anti-war films and anti-Semitism films, anti-Semitism films. Too, a beautiful story. Not to mention, Abel Gance is a filmmaker who was a great innovator around the time of D.W. Griffith here in the United States, a little bit before. And a lot of times he doesn't get the credit. I'm a big fan. Yeah. He doesn't get the credit for many of the things that he innovated that sort of accrue to Hollywood filmmakers of the day.
First widescreen film.
First widescreen film. So a triptych put together. Yeah. He put cameras on wires and cameras on horses and extremely sort of Sergei Eisensteinian sort of editing stuff like that. Really interesting stuff. Anyway, Jacques there on Blu-ray.
1938. Very, very revolutionary film in many, many respects. Yeah, really, really great. Excellent. And then we've also got Brazil. What a strange, wonderful, kind of crazy musical thing this is. The music, first of all, is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. This is from 1944. And there is no one in this of real sort of significant name recognition that we would know today, other than, to some degree, Roy Rogers, who just has a cameo, and Edward Everett Horton, who was, of course, the voice of Mr. Peabody in the Mr. Peabody cartoons, and who shows up in a lot of these old movies as just sort of a kind of a fuddy-dud, a very, very patrician fuddy-dud. But basically, this is just a lot of really great Brazilian music, a lot of samba and a lot of, just fabulous Brazilian music, kind of wrapped around a rather silly story about a lady author who is playing like is kind of living a double life, and it sort of doesn't really. It tries to be a bit of a farce, and none of it really ever works terribly well. But you just listen to the music, and it's fine. It's a lot of fun. Just don't focus on whether or not it makes any sense, and it's a great little weird kind of kitsch throwback.
Tony Curtis's Houdini with Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Houdini.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, because there are a lot of Houdinis.
I love this movie. It's nothing to do with the real Houdini's life. It just makes up all kinds of supernatural, kind of weird, mystical stuff. But I don't care.
Which is interesting because Houdini couldn't stand supernaturalism.
I know.
He used to poke. He used to poke Sir Arthur Conan Doyle about that all the time because believe it or not, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a bit of a spiritualist.
Yeah, he was.
He believed in this. I mean, Houdini was like, no, they're just making crap up. I do it every day.
But that whole angle with it, like his mom. Is she talking to me? And there's really, it's fun. It's fun, even though it's not really factual.
Yeah, 1953 film on Blu-ray. Anyway, it's a neat movie that I always sort of like. Tony Curtis, Janet Leigh. Not a whole lot on this.
No.
MSC. As a matter of fact, pretty much nothing.
Cheers for Miss Bishop. Another wonderful little discovery from the 40s. Got a lot of those this week. This is from 1940, straight up. Terrific performances here, especially Edmund Gwenn and Martha Scott, who is the star, and then Mary Anderson, who this was her first film, apparently. This is really, this is a wonderful drawing room drama, I think is the best way to put it. It's basically about a Midwestern school teacher and the life that she has led that has sort of fulfilled her, that has disappointed her, how she's sort of made some of the right choices and the wrong choices, the right and wrong relationships. It's a very sweet movie, and it's very very dignified and very respectful and very old fashioned. And a wonderful film to rediscover. I think it's definitely worth checking out. So that's the 1940s Cheers for Miss Bishop, starring Martha Scott. Really a sweet film.
Carrington, I have here from director Christopher Hampton. Christopher Hampton's interesting because he's really more of a writer than he is more of a director.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the 2 or 3 films that he directed. This is Emma Thompson and Jonathan Pryce. She's playing the painter Dora Carrington, and she has a sort of platonic relationship with. It's a good film. But when I think about Christopher Hampton, I think about Dangerous Liaisons.
Yeah.
I think about The American Quilt, which he wrote.
Yeah.
A Dangerous Method, most recently. Anyway, this is a perfectly lovely film, particularly because Emma Thompson is in it, and Emma Thompson is freaking fantastic.
Terrific.
Blu-ray here, not a whole lot on this one either.
And the last of the Olive Time. Oh, and by the way, with Christopher Hampton, the most interesting thing about Christopher Hampton, David Lean's final film was supposed to be an adaptation of Joseph Conrad's Nostromo. Mm-hmm. And I remember being a David Lean fanatic, as I am, on a trip to the Cannes Film Festival in, I think it was 92. I think it was 92. When I was, in my crazy, naive, fresh out of film school mind, I was, I thought I'm just going to get a whole lot of meetings with a lot of people in France. I'll just write them letters and tell them I'm an American kid. It was ridiculous what I did. But I met with a lot of interesting people in Paris before I got down to the film festival, including the original producer of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, who talked to me for about a half an hour in his offices and told me all kinds of interesting stories. And I met more people than I expected to, and I also met the production manager for Nostromo, which was in the works at that time. And I saw the production boards for Nostromo wrapping around the walls of the offices in Paris. And it was insane what that movie was going to be. It was going to be amazing. Christopher Hampton wrote the first draft of that. And then Lean went back to Robert Bolt and had him do a complete rewrite of what Hampton had written. And Lean always said something very interesting. When people would ask him about, before he died, when they asked him about, working with Hampton and Bolt, he said, Christopher writes in primary colors. Robert writes in pastels. And I thought, that is just such an amazingly cool English thing to say. Yeah. Because it really...
And I understand exactly what he means.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Dangerous Liaisons is all primary colors. Yeah. It is. So anyway. And the last of the Olive titles, and coming down to the end of our coverage this week, is Raquel Welch in Hanny Calder, which Olive has re-released as part of the Olive Signature line. They are releasing as the Olive Signature line, and with really cool slip covers and sleeves, a lot of their really classic titles, and with all new extras on them and better transfers. And Hanny Calder absolutely warrants it. This was directed by Burt Kennedy in 1971. This is one of those 1970s era westerns that becomes almost an anti-western, turning back on everything that westerns were in the 50s and 60s. And it is maybe the best actual acting performance Raquel Welch ever did, because she's like an anti-sex symbol in this thing. It is just absolutely terrific. It is essentially I Spit on Your Grave, done as a western. You know, it is a woman who is out for vengeance in the West after being raped and her husband being murdered, and she's just she's going to really give it to the bad guy played by Ernest Borgnine, and he of course has a bunch of other people who are along with him, Jackie Lamb and Strother Martin, and it's a nasty gang, but it's Strother Martin, right? But a lot of great extras on this thing. There's an audio commentary that features Alex Cox of all people, who needs to go out and make some more movies of his own, but it's nice to hear him kind of weigh in on this. It's really, really interesting, and it gives me an insight into Walker. Did you ever see Alex Cox's Walker?
No.
With Ed Harris as Walker, the guy that did the Nicaraguan coup.
Yeah.
Walker, the American mercenary who staged a coup of Nicaragua in the 19th century. There's a lot of Hanny Calder. Yeah, there's a lot of Hanny Calder in that movie. So that's interesting. And then there's Ben Scher, who's a film scholar, does an interesting bit here looking at rape revenge movies in general, which is a really interesting subgenre that nobody's written enough about. And some other stuff here. Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, which is an essay by Kim Morgan, is also really good on the same subject. So I just
Park Chan-wook.
I think that's a really cool film. And then lastly, on the classic film front, got a few other little things here we'll get to real quickly. Because we're running out of time, from the film Detective, who keeps restoring really great stuff. The Man Who Skied Down Everest is best documentary of the Academy Awards in 1975. The really cool stuff that they keep getting from Film Detective, this just goes right in there. This is an amazing movie that stars Yuichiro Miura and Douglas Rain, and it is essentially the story of how I'm just murdering his name, I know it, how Yuichiro Miura really honestly did try to ski down Mount Everest in 1970. And Douglas Rain, who is the voice of HAL 9000, does the narration of this. And he reads from the diary that Miura actually wrote, and it has this strange kind of surreal, otherworldly feel to it that documentaries just do not have. And this is really an astonishing movie.
Well, the notion here, of course, is that, first of all, in order to ski down Mount Everest,
you have to be insane.
Well, first of all, you have to climb Mount Everest.
Yes.
So that's the first sort of thing that has to happen. And then, of course, you can't really ski down Mount Everest. It'd be like a 45, 50-degree angle. What you would be doing is falling. You're falling. It's what you're doing.
It's really an amazing...
But it is sort of metaphysical.
It's an amazing movie. And then last two are compilations here. Superhero Origins is 3 classic serials, Batman and Robin, and The Shadow, all of them from the 1940s. All of them rather silly, but thoroughly enjoyable. This is from Mill Creek, licensing from Columbia Pictures. The Shadow from 1940 is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I found that to be really, really great. The Batman serials from 1943 and 49 are just absolutely silly, but still a lot of fun for Batman fans. And then 5 classic war films. This is from Mill Creek. This is 5 films, all of them really interesting in their own ways, all jammed together on one compilation set. You get Bitter Victory, The Prisoner, Commandos, Strike at Dawn, Castle Keep, and Young Winston. Now, Young Winston is the great film here. Richard Attenborough directed this film. All of these are beautiful, beautiful widescreen, with the exception of Commandos, Strike at Dawn. But the super widescreen of young Winston, which is 2.5 hours long, it's a great film. It's a beautiful film. It's worth buying this just for that alone. And then Sidney Pollock's Castle Keep.
Oh yeah, Castle Keep. Burt Lancaster with that patch.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Oh, that's a young Sidney Pollock film. Yeah. Sidney Pollock was really young.
Oh yeah, very young. 69 actually. Yeah. So those are the two here. Bitter Victory is also great. Richard Burton, Kurt Jurgens. That's been out before. And The Ringers here is kind of The Prisoner, which is not great, but you see it for Alec Guinness and Jack Hawkins, and directed through Gwenville, who did of course Beckett. And Commandos Strike at Dawn is the less interesting of the lot, which is from 1943. So, but it's still, these are all noteworthy films, all worth checking out. So, I recommend this for people who are looking for a really great bargain buy for themselves or as a gift. All right, Tim, that's it for this week. Thank you for sitting in again. We'll have you next week, and then we'll bring Mark back to tell us whether his giant romantic escapade actually bore fruit.
How could it be bad?
That's true. All right, we'll see you next week.